Let's talk about competitive offer strategies here in Northern Virginia real estate market. Hi, I'm Casi Carey from the Carey Collective, and if you've been following along, I am your relocation specialist and your Vienna local, and I love to jump on and share tips to everyone about what is working and not working in the Northern Virginia real estate market right now. So it is summer 2026, and oftentimes we actually see multiple offers on single family homes, move-in ready townhomes. Condos tend to move a little bit slower in Northern Virginia, but I wanted to jump on today and share with you what it's like to have a competitive offer in this market or in Northern Virginia market as a whole. So what in the world can you do to make your offer more and more competitive? Well, let's break down a few things. So in the standard contract in Northern Virginia, there are 3 contingencies truly. You've got a home inspection contingency, a financing contingency, and an appraisal contingency. In order to be the most competitive in a multi-offer situation, we are seeing buyers waive all of those contingencies. So what in the world? I know you're like, Cassie, how am I going to buy a house but waive a home inspection? Well, one thing we like to do with our buyers is called a pre-inspection. Not all sellers allow us in to do this, but I will always reach out to the listing agent that you are of the home that you're interested in and ask, hey, can we come in, do a walk and talk or a pre-inspection before we put in an offer? And what we do here is we line up an inspector to meet us at the property. You don't get a formal report with a pre-inspection. So you are following them around with your cell phone or your note taker, or frankly, now with AI, we can record it and email ourselves the notes, which is really, really awesome. So you are following them around and they are trying to look at the big stuff, the foundation, exterior, all the systems, trying to get as much plumbing, windows, all of that they can look at within an hour. It is fast. You really want to hold your questions until the end, until the inspector is totally done, because you don't want to slow them down and prevent them from looking at even more things just by asking more and more questions. So write those questions down as you're walking around. And then you at least have an idea. Okay, what are we getting ourselves into? Are these things that we're willing to accept? Because every single home has something, and it just really depends on your threshold for risk and what you're willing to take on as a purchaser. Northern Virginia is a buyer beware state, so it is up to the buyer to do their due diligence before purchasing a home, and that's included in the home inspection. So pre-inspection, about an hour, you are literally taking notes as fast as you can, trying to listen and look at the big stuff in every single home and decide, okay, yeah, we still want to offer. Then it's the appraisal would come next. So what we do is we're going to look at the comps in the area. But something I'm going to tell you right now, which you might not like to hear, is they don't really matter all the time. Yes, are we going to look at them? 100%. I'm actually looking for patterns. What is happening in that neighborhood for this type of home in the last 2 to 3 months? How high over list are they going? What is the trend that we're seeing and what we can expect for your offer in order to get it accepted? The thing is that you have to understand, sometimes you don't know what the other buyer situations are. So if there's another buyer that might be writing an offer on this house that you're also interested in, and they have lost out on 5 houses, they might be desperate. Their lease might be up. They might not have anywhere to live, and they might go all out for that offer and go higher and offer a higher number that you're not willing to do. So the reality is, even in a situation where you write an offer significantly over list, I have seen up to $400,000 over list price in Northern Virginia. And I don't tell you that to scare you, but I tell you that because we have seen it. And you can just write your best offer for that house. Again, part of my job is communicating with the listing agent. I also want to set expectations. So if a house is looking like they've got 5 offers and they're already 100,000 over list, and you want to write something at list price, odds are you're not going to get that accepted. And so again, I'm communicating with the listing agent as much as possible, trying to get the information. How competitive is this? How high do we have to write? Can we do an escalation clause? That's really my favorite for my buyers, is you write to your top number as an escalation. And when you hit a certain number, that's it. It's not your home. If it goes $1 over it, you know it's not your home. But I'm sharing this because what comes with that appraisal contingency is the financing contingency. So let's say you write an offer on a house, $200,000 over list, and worst case scenario, it appraised at list price. So we have what's called a $200,000 appraisal gap. This is where you have to have cash. If you have cash and you are going to have a large down payment, if your gap is $200,000, your loan to value really isn't going to change much because you've already worked with the lender. You've already seen what that sales price looks like in a mortgage and a down payment and everything. Some of that cash, though, is going towards essentially your future appreciation of the house. But what happens is once that house closes, the house that you just got and closed on, the neighbor is now going to list higher. That you become the new comp of the neighborhood. So if the exact same neighbor has your house, now their list price is going to start at where you closed. So I tell you this because you do want to make a smart offer. If you are going to waive all your contingencies, we really work deeply with a lender. Do they have cash in case there is an appraisal gap? Let's talk about the worst case scenario. Make sure everyone's okay with the worst case scenario before moving forward. So again, those 3 contingencies in competitive market, we do see people still waiving them in 2026. Another thing that you can consider waiving in a strategic competitive offer is the HOA documents. If a listing agent already has the HOA documents in advance of going on the market, we're going to try to get them right away to see if we can look at them quickly. Now, depending on the HOA, there are different variability of strictness. I will tell you, in Reston HOA, it is an extremely strict HOA. So sometimes those homes tend to come with violations. It is usually up to the seller to remedy those violations before close and get what's called an all clear letter. However, if you waive the HOA violations and they don't do that, you take on those HOA violations. So it's just something to understand in the process. So again, let's talk about this strategic offer. You can waive HOA, which on average is usually about 3 days to review. But because the last 2 years, so many buyers were writing addendums saying they waived the HOA period, that they ended up changing the Northern Virginia contract that you write it in now on a line, how many days you want to review, and you can put 0. Anything over 3, though, really is kind of long. In this standard market, we don't really see that. So you can waive HOA, you can waive the home inspection, you can waive the appraisal, you can waive the financing. So how else can you be strategic and make your offer more competitive? One is earnest money deposit. So this is good faith deposit. This is your money. It goes towards your closing costs, your down payments. The higher that earnest money deposit is, the more you're showing the seller that you're not going to walk away from that offer. So if you've waived all your contingencies and you have $100,000 earnest money, that seller can sit back and think, okay, they're not going to walk away from $100,000. On average, we see the earnest money, if it's, I'll say, a normal market, I don't know what normal even is, but if a house has been on the market for a week, you can get away with 2 to 3% of the earnest money. Sometimes we see 1% even on a lower price home. That's totally normal if it's not competitive and have multiple offers. But the moment we have a multi-offer situation, if you want to be more competitive, your earnest money higher makes you more competitive because the seller, it's psychology to the seller. Oh, they're not going to walk away from this. And if they do, I at least get this amount, which brings me to my next point, the risk. If you do a high earnest money and you waive all contingencies, you've waived the HOA, you've waived the home inspection, you've waived the appraisal, and you've waived the financing, the earnest money is what is at risk. If you get cold feet after going under contract, the seller can keep your earnest money and or decide to sue you. So I'm telling you all of this because to be competitive, you need to know that you're going to close on the home. I never, ever write offers that my clients do not want to close on. We only write those offers super strategic to win, to know that we are going to close because we don't want to risk your earnest money deposit. You have to understand that risk and you have to be like, we are all in, Cassie, we are going for it. So high earnest money, waived contingencies, waived HOA, what else? Frankly, it's what does the seller need? We want to find out, does the seller need to stay in their home after closing? Can you offer them what's called rent back? And what that means is you close, but they stay in the home up to 59 days. Sit down for this. Usually in a competitive offer, I will say 100% of the time, fine, 99.9, buyers offer that for free. Yes, they can stay in your house for free. So why is that something they can do? Well, let's say we close in August. If we close on a house in August, your first mortgage is due October. So really you're like, okay, if we close in August and they stay in, let's say you close mid-August, they stay until mid-October, your first mortgage is due in October when you would take occupancy of the house. Yes, you might pay some of your mortgage when they are in it, but that's totally up to you. But that is in a spring market in Northern Virginia. That is what sellers are looking for. That is what will win it. Because a lot of times what sellers are doing is they want a quick close. So as quick as 14 days, that's another competitive strategy. Do they want quick close? You want to make sure you're working with a lender that can work really quickly. Can you close in 14 days and then give them 59-day rent back where they're taking the cash and then going to look to find their next home? Maybe in Northern Virginia, maybe they're moving and needing to find it somewhere else, but giving them that cash and that time makes their lives easier, which is what you want to do if you want your offer accepted. So I hope this all makes sense. I know it's a lot. If you want to work through what a Northern Virginia contract looks like, send me a message. My email is Casi, C-A-S-I, at thecareycollective.com. My phone number is 513-284-5396. I'd love to set up a video call to talk through this with you. And it's just important to know what season we're in and what you need to do in advance to writing an offer, because sometimes I understand if you don't have the tolerance to do that, then we don't go look at houses the first weekend on the market. You also may have to be a little bit more strategic about what type of houses you go look at. Go see houses when they make it through the first weekend. Go see houses that have been on the market for 7 days. If you want to keep your contingencies in a spring competitive market, those really are the best ways to do it. Or can you have flexibility in your buying power, your buying timeline at all? The summer, which we're in right now, summer 2026, we've just gotten 2 buyers under contract this week with all of their contingencies at list price. So the seasons do change in the market. The summer is a little bit slower for sellers. So buyers can usually keep their contingencies in the summer, and also then comes back again in the holidays from Thanksgiving through the new year. So if you do not have the risk tolerance to do that, or the cash to do that, you're not alone. Don't freak out. It happens. But we want to try to time it a little bit better to make sure that you're not writing offers that don't make sense. You're not writing offers that are never going to get accepted, because it's exhausting emotionally for you. You're already dealing with so many other things. You're working, maybe taking care of the kids, moving from out of state. Like, I get it that it's hard. So let's have that conversation of how can we be the most strategic? How can we be the most competitive for what our situation is? Everyone is different, but this video is to prepare you. If you're thinking to move during a really competitive time, what does the offer look like in Northern Virginia? And how can you be competitive? So I hope this is helpful. I hope you're enjoying your summer, and please reach out if you have any questions. I'm just here to help.